Hello and welcome back. And what have we got for you today? Well, there's a British Allied force defending and a French force attacking. Now, the British Allied force only has to defend their ground and be there at the end of the battle, whereas the French force have to either destroy the force, take their baggage train, or capture their commander. The forces are equally constructed of 2,300 points, and the British force is today commanded by a General Woods, better known to his men as Buttons. Why, you ask? Because regardless of where they are, on the parade ground or in the field, their uniforms can be in tatters and their weapons less than clean, but General Woods is fascinated by how shiny their buttons are. And if they're not, then the commander of that unit would get a Royal General kick in the backside. Hence the nickname Buttons. My force refer to me as the Terrier, because when I'm locked in battle, I don't want to let go. And as I've explained to my men, for their honour, their glory, and the glory of France, I am prepared to fight to the last soldier to achieve that. And they love me for it. Truly, it's amazing. Alrighty, so let's go do battle and see what the outcome is. Just a quick look at the battlefield as a whole. You'll see the French on the left there, line regiments, one in the middle, and right out on the flank over there are their cavalry. Moving across, you see the British have cavalry over on their left flank with a horse gun, and Scottish Fusiliers and British line units down to the Nassaus with cavalry over here on the left flank. We'll have a quick look at those units in depth. Okay, the French second line, made up of 3 battalions and a lovely battalion of Dutch Grenadiers of the Imperial Guard. Best troops the French have in this force on the field today. There are Saxon Grenadiers there, but it's a very small unit. And this is the 22nd Line Regiment, made up of 3 battalions holding the centre. Commander behind them with messengers, and protecting the baggage train, the Paris Municipal Guard. The artillery is over here on the French right flank, and it's actually hidden here to try and keep it out of line of the British artillery. There's a French howitzer and a horse gun. Horse gun is there to support the cavalry. You'll notice the French general has loaded up his right flank with all the cavalry he has. Cuirassiers, followed by horse grenadiers of the Imperial Guard, followed by, or at least further out, dragoons. Okay, swinging across now to the British, and you'll see there Scotch Greys, a whole regiment of them, KGL Hussars, just a small unit, British Horse Gun, Scottish Line Regiment, Fusilier Line Regiment, a British 2nd Line Regiment with supporting Greek lights. There's the artillery of the British in the yard of that house there, a heavy and a field. Commander just there with his ammunition and field train behind him. On his right flank, the 1st Line Regiment, supported by a battalion of Nassaus. The 2nd Battalion of Nassaus is back here with the ammunition train, and over on this flank, to balance the cavalry out, we have KGL Light Cavalry, again small unit, and a regiment of Spanish Cuirassiers, smallish but quite powerful. So that's the makeup of the 2 forces facing each other on the field today. The battle always opens with the artillery. That tends to get everyone's attention. wish to take it out of action quickly. End of move 2, the artillery fire is continuing. British still concentrating with the howitzer on this line and roll into set 22nd up there. The French are continuing to counter battery that British horse gun. You can see up there on the left flank. And the only new development is there's a messenger being sent to the cavalry here, and one can guess that their orders will be to move over to the left flank, as that's where the threat from the French cavalry is. It's the end of move number 3 and things are really starting to develop. On this, the French here is standing still and still receiving a pounding from the howitzer, and the 22nd line regiment up there from heavy. But the Spanish cuirassiers have turned and are heading over to the left flank, as we suspected, and the lights have broken into open order and are moving away quite quickly. But on the other side of the field, can you see? We'll go around there and have a look. The counter battery fire from both the French horse and howitzer have actually hit and exploded the British horse gun. It's now out of action. And that must have been the signal for the French cavalry to attack, and they're going forward in line. It's going to be really interesting here. The KGL Hussars are in open order and are heading out onto the flank. They're going to probably try and get around these heavy cavalry, as they're really not a contender to fight them, but once in their rear they can cause all sorts of mischief. So it's all starting to happen now. This is the end of move number 4 only, and already the battle is being joined. The KGL Hussars have really got out on the flank and avoided the heavy cavalry. There's the dragoons, cuirassiers, followed by the horse grenadiers charging up. The Scottish troops there have formed a square, and no doubt the Scotch Greys will be forming into line in the very near future. The artillery of the French has changed targets and are now firing at the Fusiliers, British Fusiliers there. Meanwhile, the British guns are continuing to pick at the French lines, the 10th and the 22nd, whittling them down surely. The KGL lights are charging down the road there in open order to get down this end of the field as quickly as they can, and the cuirassiers, the Spanish cuirassiers, are on the move as fast as they can, but they're heavy cavalry and they're moving around the ammunition train here to make their way over to this side of the field as quickly as they can. So what we'll do now is we will watch this cavalry battle take place and see how it all turns out, because it will be critical for the battle. Well, did you see that? It's about time I probably explained my grand strategy for the day. As you saw, my right flank has been loaded up with all my cavalry. Good cavalry they are too. Their job was to sweep around that flank, the British left flank, taking everything before it, and come around into the rear to attack their ammunition train. My infantry which are loaded up on my left flank, their job was to keep the British infantry occupied by moving forward, but not quite into musket range. Mind you, I didn't expect those guns to be doing the damage they're doing. But when they saw the French cavalry appear in the rear, they were to attack with everything they had to keep that infantry from going back to protect the baggage train, and the cavalry would take it. Now, they started off all right. At the sound of the third set of artillery fire, which was the signal, they started to move forward. The cuirassiers went straight into the Scotch Greys and, believe it or not, got absolutely cut to ribbons. While the Scotch Greys were congratulating themselves and milling around, patting themselves on the back, etc., the grenadiers of the horse grenadiers of the Old Guard charged into them, catching them in disorder, and annihilated them. There's no other word to describe it. The horse grenadiers then had to resort themselves out, and while they were doing that, the KGL lights, which had been coming at full pace from the British right flank, formed up and charged into them. But they're only a very small unit, and the horse grenadiers brushed them aside. But again, it caused them a little bit of disorder. While they were sorting that out, the KGL Hussars, which you might remember had swung right out on the flank and around into the rear, actually came back and then charged into the horse grenadiers. Now, they were a little bit tougher to deal with, but the grenadiers sent them on their way as well. At this stage, while this was happening, the dragoons coming around saw the Spanish cuirassiers coming down the road, and the two of them eyed each other, and with only the sort of hatred that the best of enemies can have towards each other, they just charged into each other. And the Spanish cuirassiers got the worst of it. What was left of them, a small amount, went back down the road they'd come up on. The dragoons then reformed and continued on their mission to go around that L-shaped hill and into the enemy's rear. Now, the horse gun was brought up while all this was happening, and the horse grenadiers were reforming and started firing a ball into the Scottish square. Now, the commander could see where this was going to go, and so, ignoring the horse grenadiers, which he probably considered exhausted and the horses blown, broke square, formed into column to march off. Now, this was like a red flag to the bull. The horse grenadiers immediately formed up and charged into the flank of the Scots as they were marching off, and rode straight over the top of that whole regiment, decimating it and capturing the colours. So at this point, I didn't expect the cuirassiers to do as badly as they did. So what's left, I've got my horse grenadiers have been pretty well exhausted. The dragoons is the only unit really in good order. I wanted more cavalry, but we'll go back now, and as they round that hill, that will be the signal for the infantry to attack. So let's see what they do. End of move number 5, and the French infantry are standing as they've been instructed to, keeping the British occupied. The British howitzer, and is still firing at the 10th Line Regiment, and the heavy is still firing at that battalion of the 22nd. End of move number 6, and the guns are still peppering away at the battalions of the 10th and 22nd Line Regiments, and the casualties are mounting. It's not good. Interestingly enough, over here you notice that the battalion of the Nassaus have about faced and on orders are moving back towards the ammunition train. Obviously the big cavalry battle taking place on the left flank is getting the British commanders a little bit nervous. End of move number 7, and interestingly enough, the British howitzer has switched targets to combine with the heavy gun, and they are both now targeting the 1st Battalion of the 22nd, which is suffering badly. The only other thing that's happening is that the Nassaus have moved around a little bit more in front of their ammunition train, and the British line regiment, the first up there, has actually advanced out of line towards the French. End of move number 8. And what you can see here is the French army coming forward. Why are they coming forward? Because they've seen the cavalry coming around that hill, and that was their orders. When that happened, they were to attack. Notice the Nassaus have gone into square, and over on the left flank you can just make out the Fusiliers coming along that road, and they're starting to head towards the square as well. But to get there quickly, they attacked in column, and those 2 guns, the howitzers and the heavies, have really made them pay for that. It's not a good move. They won't stay in column too much longer. The start of move number 9, and as you can see, the French are really advancing and firing. They're pouring it in, but the 10th over here has got the Nassaus firing on the flank, plus the British line in front. Over on the left British flank, the British line infantry there are supported by the Greek lights, and the French actually also, they have the cannon and the howitzer, the heavy gun and the howitzer firing at them as well. It's not looking good. Over here, the Fusiliers have nearly made it to the ammunition train. The French dragoons have come around. We'll see what happens there next. Now, we'll just go to the end of move number 9. Look at the devastation. The 1st 10th nearest here, being fired on by 2 battalions, one of Nassau, one of British line, has been devastated. And further along, the other battalions of the 22nd have also been decimated. The artillery fire included has really done its work. They are now all in retreat. So that means the entire 3 regiments of the 22nd are in retreat, and one of the regiments of the 10th line is in retreat as well. These other 2 line regiments of the 10th will not go forward. They are now shaken. They just won't do it. Over here we see that the Fusiliers have made it to the baggage train, basically, and it's up to the dragoons, the French dragoons now. The French still have 1 battalion of Dutch grenadiers and 1 very small battalion of Swiss grenadiers, but they can't do it by themselves, and they know it. The French horse gunners have been firing at the Fusiliers as they retreat, but the British still have 2 guns as well. Decision time. 10th move, and my infantry are in retreat. 2 battalions of the 10th won't go forward. The grenadiers can't do it by themselves, so we have failed. The infantry have failed. But what about my brave dragoons? Well, they see 2 squares that they know they can't defeat. They could probably defeat the Nassaus in square, but not the British Fusiliers. So that we will give the field, give is probably the wrong word, we will leave the field to the British. They have won the battle. They cannot chase us as they have no cavalry left and no horse gun. So we will retire in good order and regroup for another day. The battle is over. Sacre bleu, I failed. My cavalry did what I asked them to. They got around into the rear, but unfortunately there were 2 British squares there, at least a Nassau and a Fusiliers. The commander of the Dragoons knew he couldn't break 2 squares, which is what he would have had to have done to get at the ammunition train. So he stalled. My infantry advanced into the teeth of the British fire, and British line infantry produced an awesome amount of fire, of course supported by a battalion of Nassau's on one flank and supported by Greek lights on the other, and 2 cannon, a heavy and a howitzer, which have been peppering all day long, and we mustn't forget the effect that that has over an extended period of time. The infantry broke and fled. Now, the remainder 2 battalions and the battalion of Dutch Grenadiers and Saxon Grenadiers would not fight to the last man. What can you do? All right. Congratulations to General Woods, better known as Buttons, for his solid defence. We will retreat in good order because he has no cavalry or horse gun to follow us with. Small consolation. And with that, we bring to the end the wargaming season for 2020. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank all of you lovely people that have subscribed to my YouTube channel, and to all of those who just watch, please subscribe. I'd like to wish you all a very Merry Christmas. 2020 will be remembered probably for all the wrong reasons, but I hope you get some joy with your loved ones this Christmas, which is only in a few days' time. And then a happy new year, and let 2021 be full of good fortune and happiness for you all. All right, until we meet again next year on the Napoleonic Wargaming table, goodbye for now.